the materials that I'll be using for this demonstration: some A3 layout paper, a HB pencil, and then I'm using 3 different pens, and I like to use these waterproof fine nib pens. I have 0.1, 0.3 and 0.5, and I also have an eraser which will come in handy, and I have this template here for women's wear. Now, I like to use a few sheets of white paper underneath, and that's important so that you don't see the colour of your table showing through, and it makes it easier to see the template. So I have this A4 women's wear template, and then the layout pad that I am choosing to work with just means it's much easier to see through the paper, and it's less confusing than working with tracing paper. Okay, for this drawing I'm going to look at a very simple fitted dress for a woman, something that she might wear out in the evenings, or maybe something that may be more suitable for work. So to start off with, I'm going to give regular shoulders, and then maybe more business-like, I will give a slightly rounded front neck, and then continuing that line at the back, slightly lower for the back view. And then I'm going to do regular set-in sleeves, but this dress is going to be quite fitted and maybe quite work-like. I'll bring it out a little bit here so it will be easier to walk in. Okay, slightly round in the hem at the bottom. And then again, rounded neck, slightly rounded hem. It looks better in a working drawing. So for the waistline in this dress, it's going to be a natural waist, so following the curved line on this template. And because this dress is quite fitted, I'm going to need to put darts in that go from the bust to the waist and the waist down. So we never go right up to center bust, so I'll start at about here, and again, if I've got a long dart, it's going to go parallel to the body and parallel to the body here. So starting about here, center bust, it's going to come down to about here, and then it'll go to about here. Same story on the other side, down to about here, and then out to about here. So that would be a standard fitted dress for women's wear. Now I'm going to add some sleeves, so I think in this case I will put maybe a 3/4 length reasonably fitted sleeve on it. So I'll bring it down to about here and slightly rounding off the end of the sleeve. Okay, it's important to get the lengths here the same. Okay, so again with this dress, you've got to ask yourself, with any garment you've designed, how do you get into it? I'm going to put a zip center back, and I'll put a toggle on, and that means that this neck will be understitched. Okay, and I have some fixing up to do here. I can do that at the end. If I fix up at the very beginning, it can be a lot of work to finish a working drawing. So that's my basic front view. Now I'm going to ink that up. Okay, so for inking again, I have 0.1, 0.3 and 0.5. So the sleeve would be sewn in from about here to here, so that will be a 0.1. Same on the other side, the darts will be 0.1, the seam will be a 0.1, the zip opening at the back will be a 0.1, and this understitching here will be a 0.1. Apart from that, I think that a 0.3 is probably the best. Now, so starting with the 0.1, draw on the zip at the back, and then for the set-in sleeve, the waist seam, okay, and I'm going to go for 0.3 for everything else. And I'm going to go back in with the 0.1 here for the understitch at the back, and that understitch is showing that the neckline is finished with a facing. And then to do the back view, again, this dress will have an identical outline if I flip it over to look at it from the back. So simply drawing in the outline, back neck, shoulder, sleeve, now for the back, we will still have the waistline here. We may choose to flatten it out slightly, but I think a slight curve will still be good here. And then the question with the back darts, sometimes on the back that dart may go a little bit higher, but I think it will actually look very, very similar. But to make it look a little bit more like the back, I'm going to move it a little bit closer to the center back of the dress. Okay, and because this dress has a zip center back, we actually have a center back seam. Now, I think I would prefer to do that with the template rather than just going for it. So if I line the template back up in underneath and just make sure it's as centered as I can get it. Okay, so my toggle is slightly off, that's no problem. And the center back seam will run like that. So again, the template is a little bit confusing. I'll remove it again. So on a very fitted dress like this, you may sometimes have a vent at the back. So I'm going to add a vent into this dress. So a vent is where it simply opens up a little bit to give you a little bit of space to walk. So again, I'll remove that front view to make it slightly less confusing. So what will be different then with the vent at the back, and this is important, is it creates a slight overlap. So the piece that's sitting on top of the piece underneath tends to hang about 1 millimeter longer than the piece underneath. So if I erase the information at the bottom, and then this one will come to here, and the piece underneath will just be slightly shorter. So this is a very subtle thing, but immediately when I look at this dress, this looks like it's overlapping that, and that will get helped with the shadows that I choose to draw in here, because this is now an overlap. So the vent I'm going to choose will go up to about here, and there will then be some stitching to finish it off for where it opens up. Okay, I think that stitching could go in this direction or in the opposite direction. For the moment, I've chosen to put it in this direction. Okay, so for inking up the back, so I have my 0.1, 0.3 and 0.5. So starting with the 0.1, I am going to do all of the small thin lines. So again, we've got the set in sleeve to about here. We have the back waist seam. We have the dart. So where the zip goes in here, we know it's a zip because we can see the toggle. We know it has to be a long zip so that somebody can get into this dress. So there's no need for me to draw a big line to show how it opens. We know it's a zip. So it's fine for me to simply use the 0.1, but I'm going to stop the 0.1 here because I need the 0.5 down here. Come out by 1 millimeter here, that's okay, I can fix it all, just move everything over by 1 millimeter. Okay, and I'm going to leave this 0.5 here until the very end. I can draw in my top stitching here. Now 0.3 for everything else. And then I'm going to go for the 0.5 then, showing that this section here opens. Okay, so the shadow that's created there is where the 0.5 comes in. Okay, so just erasing then. Okay, so I've cut out the dress front and back. Again, I have left a slight edge, maybe 0.3, 0.5 of a centimetre of plain paper around it. So front and back would get presented in a tech pack like this. And again, you could choose to place, so long as the garment is symmetrical, they look really good sometimes placed front over back, with the front on the right hand side and slightly lower on the page than the back.